Hello and welcome to A Little Crafting. My name is Annie and this is my crafting podcast where I talk about all the things that I have been making. Today is Sunday the 16th of July and it has been quite some time since I last recorded, I think actually 2 months. And that's actually not necessarily true because I have recorded 2 episodes since then, but I decided not to publish them because they weren't good enough. So the last time I published an episode on YouTube was 2 months ago. So welcome back to anyone who has been following me for some time, and welcome to anyone who is brand new to my channel. I hope you enjoy the content that I'm sharing today. And if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram as a_little_crafting and on Ravelry as Ankiwoo. I am coming to you from Surrey, which is southwest of London in the UK, where I live with my husband and my cat. And today, if you hear any background noise, it is incredibly windy at the moment. So we've got high winds, so it might be that things are falling over, etc. outside, but I hope you can hear me okay throughout this episode. Let's start off with the elephant in the room, which is a finished object. And I do remember saying in my last episode that by the time I recorded next, I would have finished this project, and I'm really happy to have done at this point in time. So I actually checked on Ravelry and I started knitting this in November 2022, which is quite fitting because it is called the November Vest by Petite Knit, and it is an all over brioche vest, kind of open jacket thing, with a border in double knitting, which I think looks fantastic. So I'll stand up and show you a little bit of the detail. So this yarn is Hedgehog fibres Tweedy in their kind of light grey base. What I love about this vest as well is that it has quite large pockets, so I can put my phone in here, and my hands fit very nicely. You can't quite see how long it is, but it sort of goes just below my hip, and I think this is a perfect length, so I'm really glad I ended up knitting a bit more when I was unsure. And I just love the detail of this vest, the way that you have these clean lines, so the brioche kind of creates a line all the way down this double knitting section, which then the increases sort of drop off to one side. I think that looks fantastic. The shaping is great for me. The fit is really, really nice. And I'm going to get a lot of wear out of this. You can see all the little tweedy flecks from the tweedy yarn as well, which adds pops of colour. Yeah, so I'm really, really happy. It has taken me a very long time to knit and finish, and that's the nature of brioche, I think, and also the double knitting, which is double thickness. But I really wanted this this vest, so I just kept going and hardly knit anything else or made anything else over the last few months, which is why you haven't seen very much of me. But yeah, very, very happy with this. The video tutorials from Petite Knit, who's the designer, are absolutely fantastic. So if you knit one of her patterns, especially the more complicated ones like this, she provides video tutorials. They are in, I can't remember where she's from, one of the Scandinavian countries' languages, but the subtitles are all in English, so you don't need to try and figure out what they're saying. It's all done for you. And they're really, really helpful. I have to say I learned a lot during this project. Just things like picking up stitches for the back, picking up stitches for the arms, double knitting I'd never done before, and there's a lot of it, so all of the borders are in double knit. And I also had to do a tubular bind off on a lot of it, which I have done before but not that often, so I kind of got some good practice in there. I think they actually call it an Italian bind off, but I think it's the same thing as a tubular bind off. So yeah, definitely upskilled during this project. I have to say I'm having a break for brioche knitting though. I have knit a lot of brioche, so I'm going to go on to some regular knitting next up, just to have a bit of a rest from that. But yeah, super happy with this. I'm going to be wearing it a lot, especially as we go into autumn, I think. At the moment it's a little bit hot because this yarn is wool, and I can share the details. So this is Hedgehog Fibres Tweedy. This is the ball band. It's very reflective. And it is 50% Falklands Merino, 37.5% recycled wool, and 12.5% Hedgehog Fibres thread waste. And the thread waste is what creates the little flecks of tweed. Something I will probably do is just tidy up some of the edges with the tweedy bits, just to make sure that they're nice and clean. So for example, on the pockets I've got a bit where I've got like a little tweedy bit that's just sticking out and not keeping that line nice and crisp. So I will probably do that, but I can see myself wearing this a lot in future, and having this as one of the kind of staples in my wardrobe, where I'm, you know, wearing a long sleeve t-shirt or a casual shirt and I just chuck this on over to keep myself a bit warm. I also find in the office at work I have the trouble where a lot of the clothes I wear don't have pockets, so when I want to go out and buy a coffee I have to carry my phone, my wallet and the coffee when I go and buy it. So this having really nice big pockets is fantastic, because I can put my phone in one, my wallet in the other, then I can safely carry my coffee and not feel like I'm going to drop everything as I'm walking up the stairs. So that is my finished project. I'm going to try and take a few more photos shortly, so I'll try and pop some here so that you can see the entire outfit and how it kind of works really well as a kind of simple basic staple. Yeah, so I got there eventually. But let's talk about some of the things that I am now knitting following on from that. So a friend and I last week, I was lucky enough to have a few days off, and we went to visit the yarn shop Knit, which is in Teddington, which is part of Richmond. Knit is a yarn shop that has a lot of Sandnes garn, Knitting for Olive. They've also got Ficilana, a few kind of commercial yarns, but the nicer commercial yarns, if you see what I mean. I think they did also have a small selection of hand dyed stuff, but not nearly as much as the likes of Loop or Tribe Yarns, which is also in Richmond. And as such I decided to buy some Knitting for Olive cotton merino. I'll show you what else I bought later on. So Knitting for Olive cotton merino is 70% organic cotton and 30% merino, so it's got a high cotton content versus merino, which is great for summer months, for example. And this colourway is Strawberry Ice Cream, which I think fits it perfectly. So it's kind of a bit less bright pink than it's showing on camera, but it's also got a bit of white in it, which I thought was a great colour for summer. And I am knitting the Camisole number 5 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. So I will pop a picture just here so that you can actually see what this will look like, because at the moment on my needles, I'll show you, it kind of just looks like I'm knitting something like a thong, but it's not. It's just these sections here are the straps, and this is kind of the front section that will go across here. I realise I'm not showing this off very well, but yeah, it will go across the front. It's very stretchy, so the fabric is knit 2 purl 2 ribbing, and again you've got these kind of nice clean lines down the edge, which will form the edge of the top. So yeah, I've been knitting on this for about a week, and I have been getting on really well with it. It's quite nice and simple and basic. I'm just hoping it fits in the end. It's kind of hard to tell at the moment, again, because it's a stretchy fabric, and I don't know how it will turn out once it's blocked, because I wanted to get this ready for a flight last Wednesday and didn't give myself the time to block. So, but if it doesn't fit me, it'll fit probably my sister or something like that, and I can give it to her. But yeah, I'm enjoying the 2x2 ribbing and kind of cracking on with this overall as well. And it should be a really nice summer top once it's finished, just in time for the weather to turn bad probably, but you know, I can always wear it next year. And I am really enjoying knitting this cotton merino. It's really nice on the hands, unlike kind of 100% cotton where it's quite rough. And I'm using, I believe, let me double check. So these are bamboo higher sharp fixed needles in 2.25 millimeters, and I've said before in the podcast I do tend to have to go down sizes, so this won't be the same for everybody, but I am thoroughly enjoying that project, and I'll keep you updated on how I'm getting on going forward. I've bought 3 balls of the cotton merino. There's 250 meters for 550 grams, and I did check the pattern before I bought it to make sure that that was going to work out okay. So yeah, that's the one project that I have been working on over the last week. Apologies for the clanking, I've got a keychain on my bag there. And yeah, I'm keeping this in a little bag by Butternut Handmade. This was one of the Christmas ones from a few years ago, which has some kind of woodland animals on it in gold that I thought was really sweet. So yeah, that's what I'm using as a project bag right now. And I have a carabiner keyring on here, just to make sure everybody knows I'm a climber. So yes, that it has been quite enjoyable to knit, especially moving from this to a small summer top in cotton is quite different, so it's been quite fun to switch back to something else as well. The other thing I am working on at the moment is in a quince pie bag. I love the pattern on this one, it's got a little tail there. This one is from Etsy, from a lady in Wales. And I am knitting the Pressed Flowers cowl, and that is by Amy Christoffers. You won't see much at the moment, but this is how it's looking so far. So right now I'm on the kind of plain sort of dotty stitch before starting the actual flower pattern that comes through later on. But I am knitting this, and this is the first project that I'm knitting in my Handspun yarn. So I'll show you this one. This is Hedgehog Fibres yarn, sorry, not a yarn club, fibre club, which I subscribed to last year. This kind of goes from pink all the way through to yellow, and then I have another small skein that goes kind of yellow to orange, that I'll be adding on. I actually have it here. There you go. It's a bit of a mess in the cake, but you see what I mean. So it goes kind of from pink to yellow to a bit of orange in the centre. And the yarn I am holding with it is a favourite of mine. It's Durerum Natura Ulysse, which is a sport weight yarn. And I cannot remember what colour this is. but I think it might be Fusain, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just a kind of very charcoal grey to black colour, which I thought would go quite well with a light colour like the pinks and the light blues that we're getting in the handspun yarn. So I'm hoping that will come out really nicely, especially once I start to get to the actual pattern for this. I wanted to do the cowl because I can kind of adapt that to the amount of yarn that I have, and I thought I'd get a lot more use out of it. So it's knit flat in mosaic knitting stitch, so I'm still doing slip stitches and mosaic knitting, which is somewhat similar to brioche, but I'm enjoying seeing how it's coming through, and I think the effect that the pressed flowers pattern kind of creates crosses but that end up looking a bit like flowers, I think that will be really effective with the hand spun yarn as well. So I'm excited to see how it turns out later on. And I just decided to cast this one on first because I happen to have the pinky blue cake already ready to go, and thought, why not? So I did actually order some Ulysse yarn, especially to use with my hand spun, because most of my hand spun is a sport to DK weight, so it fits quite nicely, especially when it comes to mosaic knitting and colour work. And that is that one. Again, I'm using my high sharp steel needles. I have an interchangeable set, but it probably wouldn't help anyone to know the sizes, but I'll tell you anyway. I think I'm using, yeah, 3.5mm 4-inch tips on my interchangeable needles, and just getting on quite nicely with that. I'm looking forward to starting the pattern itself rather than just the kind of dotty pattern, to see how effective that hand spun yarn is. And I'm also super excited to start some more hand spun projects now, especially after finishing this, so I will have some of those in my future. I've paired up a few colours of hand spun with some Ulysse that I bought just to kind of get some combos going and get a good idea of what projects I can go for. I'll also link in the description below a list on Ravelry of all of the projects I have added to a favourites bundle, to kind of use as inspiration for my handspun projects. So basically I've created a handspun pattern list, which I'm happy to share with anyone who's interested. So that is my second knitting project. And I don't actually have much more in actual knitting projects to show you, just because I have a lot of languishing whips sitting there waiting for me to pick them up. I have a couple of more summery tops that I started knitting last year that I'm going to start knitting as well, so I will likely show those in the next video, especially if I've made good headway on those two projects already. But I have done a little bit of spinning and a little bit of cross stitch as well, so let me show you that one. So this one is Viola top from John Arbon yarns. It is now a discontinued fibre and a discontinued yarn base, but I managed to snag 100 grams of the North Sea colour. I did this in 3 sections and 3-plied it because it's more of a tonal yarn rather than it being quite variegated. I thought that would be much nicer, and this is how it's looking. So it's 100 grams, again my usual, which is sort of sport to DK weight. I think this is more on the DK weight side because it is a 3-ply, so it's a bit puffier. It's got some nice tonal variation there, and I'm looking forward to knitting with it, but again I'm not sure what to do with it. I like the little specks of lighter colours that are kind of coming through in sections, that you can see there. So really happy with how that's come out. It's really lovely and soft, which is one of the reasons I wanted to snag some of the Viola fibre before it disappeared. And I've got a couple more bags of fibre that I will be spinning at some point soon, so that I can, you know, make sure I've got some yarn out of that last bit that was available. So yeah, super happy with that. It is, I guess, not as interesting as the really heavily kind of tonal barber poly yarns that I've been spinning recently, but still very nice nonetheless. What I'm likely to do with this actually is pair it with some handspun that I'm working on at the moment that I'll show you in a minute, and see if I can do a bit of a fade. So from this blue through to a kind of brighter blue through to a bluey green colour. Yeah, 100 grams of that completed. And I am still really enjoying spinning yarn. It is definitely very relaxing, and I highly recommend it for anyone who first of all has the means and the space to have a spinning wheel, but also who feels like giving it a go. So that is North Sea Viola top that I've spun into 100 grams of sport weight yarn. Next up, I will just show you what I have been spinning more recently. So this is just on a bobbin, but this is some yarn or some fibre that I have started spinning. This was from Spindles and Stitches in her kind of like temporarily closing down due to having a baby sale, where she had some bat bits going. I'll show you what they look like. Sorry for the crinkling. So this is what they look like. Again, I'm going to do a 3-ply so that I can pair this with the other yarn, but this is one ply so far. I've got another one that I've done that's already on the spinning wheel, and then I need to spin up the rest of these little bat bits to then create the 3-ply yarn. I've measured out by weight, so I'm hoping I'll have enough. I'll probably get some kind of leftover bits on the bobbins, but I think it should be fine. I had about 140 grams of this, because although I bought some, she also gave me some as a little extra treat that were the same colour, so I've added all of those in. Yeah, and that's how it's looking. It's going to have a nice variation with that kind of little bit of white in it as well, I think, in terms of creating the 3-ply. It should be lovely. And I was planning on knitting a shawl with all of these, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I think I'll see how they turn out and then go from there. The other set of bat bits that I'm planning on spinning are blue with yellow, so I'm thinking they'll come out a little bit more green as the fibres blend together. And they're also from Spindles and Stitches. That's the progress I am making there. So yeah, let's move on to cross stitch next. So if you watched before, I was in the process of doing a Dungeons and Dragons cross stitch. As you know, if you follow me regularly, I play D&D once or twice a week usually with friends. I'm a DM for one of the groups and I am a player for the other one. I play a bard in the game that I play, that my husband is running. But I saw on Instagram a D&D Ampersand design by Aliton Embroidery that was shown by someone who actually done the cross stitch and then displayed it really nicely with some dice, and I thought, I have to find where to get that. I need one of those, and I've made a lot of progress on this. So I'm just going to remind myself, this is a Nerge number 5 hoop, and this is how it's looking. So it's actually starting to look a bit more like an ampersand now, where I don't think it was so much before. You could kind of see the dragon but not much else, and actually looking at it on the screen, it's coming out really nicely now. I have a needle minder from Vikas Space, who actually got me into embroidery in the first place because I bought one of her kits. And I use that just to keep my needles so that it doesn't disappear. I've actually got 2 attached to the back. And yeah, still thoroughly enjoying it, just doing a few crosses every so often. Enjoying the fact that this is more of a gradient design, so you can kind of progress through the colours really well, and that kind of keeps my interest. I think if it was one colour, I'd just get a little bit bored of it, I suppose. And I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic when it's done. So I'm really excited to have it finished off. My husband is also doing some cross stitch. He is doing some designs that are related to the classes that we're playing in games. So I'm hoping that this can go on the wall with those. And I have a good idea of where it will go in this room as well. So yeah, it uses up, I think, about 19 colours of thread. So I was lucky enough to find a box on eBay where someone was selling 200 DMC threads. But I have had to add to that a little bit. But overall, I'm just really enjoying the colour changes, enjoying the process, and picking it up and putting it down every so often to just do a little bit more. And yeah, it's been fun. It takes a lot longer than the kind of satin stitch embroidery that I've been doing in terms of the Vikas Space embroidery. So I do remember how cross stitch takes time because you're doing a cross every time. But yeah, it's still fun, and this is the first cross stitch I've actually started in a long time that I'm really excited to finish. So yeah, probably the first one since I was about 12 years old that I'm going to be finishing off, which is impressive. But that just goes to show I do have a few kits that are on the go that I just have put down over the years and just gone, oh, actually I'm getting a bit bored of this, I'm not that interested. Whereas this is going to look very, very cool. I'll link to Aliton Embroidery in the description below so that you can go and check those patterns out. She or he typically, or they typically have this kind of gradient effect on a lot of their cross stitch patterns. So if there's something else that you're interested in, I think there'll be something for you. So that I am thoroughly enjoying too, although I haven't done that much cross stitch recently because I've been trying to finish this. I guess we can now move on to acquisitions. You have seen one of my acquisitions already. That was the strawberry ice cream coloured yarn from Knitting for Olive in cotton merino, but I did also buy some other yarn from Knit in Teddington as well. So the first one was I bought a sweater's quantity of this Sandnes garn colour just because it was so blue and vivid that I just couldn't not buy it. So this is 100% merino wool produced in Norway by Sandnes Garn. It is 50 grams for 235 meters. So I think it's effectively a fingering weight yarn. And I am going to pair this probably with an alpaca, or a suri alpaca or brushed alpaca, to knit the Eira sweater. And that one is by did have a note of it here. The Eira sweater is by Fiskum Sunde. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, so sorry if I'm butchering your name. What I will be doing, yeah, is pairing this with a lace weight suri alpaca yarn. I have got some ideas of lace weight that I can pair with this. One of them I did buy at Knit, and that is Cama Rose Midnight Sole. So this one is 54% baby alpaca, 36% tencel, and 10% merino. So it's not your typical kind of suri alpaca silk yarn, but I thought this would work quite well together. Yeah. However, this has quite a dark undertone thread. So I'm wondering if it's gonna darken this a little bit too much. My plan, therefore, is to knit a swatch and see what happens. So I will be swatching this at some point soon, also because I'm quite excited about this colour and knitting with it. I think it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. Pop a picture of the Eira sweater here so you get an idea. The sample that they have is actually in a kind of darker blue, but I think it will be amazing in this. I've got a few other ideas if this doesn't pan out. So for example, there is a colour by Drops that I could potentially use, and yeah, if it doesn't work, I'll order some other colours of this. I'll probably use this for something else instead. I do have a little bit of a reaction to mohair, which is why I'm not just going straight for the mohair that you can get, but I was recommended a mohair by a shop assistant in, or probably a shop owner in France last week, that I am testing out. So again, I've bought a ball of that just to try out, and what I have done to test it is knit an I-cord necklace so that I can have something like a little choker around my neck with that yarn to see if it does irritate me too much. So I'll probably, you know, tie it around my neck and see over a certain period of time whether I can put up with it or not. But we shall see how that works. I thought that was a good idea. That was actually my husband's idea. He suggested a bracelet, but I went, ooh, actually a necklace might be better because I know that this section is the more sensitive part of our bodies. So yeah, we'll test it out. It could be that I'm only sensitive to some kinds of mohair. The shop person, owner, assistant, whatever she was, did say that certain mohairs are much softer and therefore not going to trigger a reaction in the same way as others are. So it could be that I've just had bad luck in the past, but I will do a little test and I'll report back and let you know how I get on with that, because I thought that was an interesting idea. And I think that colour will be a more close match to this, but I haven't actually put them together yet to see. So yeah, lots of testing going on. We'll see how I get on. I'll report back, probably maybe do a separate video on it just to show the swatches and kind of explain a bit about my process and how I'm doing things, because I thought it might be useful to share that as well. But yes, this colour I'm just obsessed with, so I want a sweater out of it. I have 6 spools of this yarn, and I'll probably need 6 or 7 of whatever I pair it with. The other thing I bought was out of curiosity. So this is again Cama Rose Manestrale, and this one is 68% baby alpaca, 12% merino, 16% polyamide and 4% polyester, and it is a sparkly silver yarn. So I'm hoping you'll be able to see a bit of the sparkle in there. I don't know what it is at the moment, but I am obsessed with sparkle, especially in handspun. And this is not really very typical of me. I don't wear sparkly things, you know, I'm not really very attracted to like gemstones or diamante or anything like that. But for some reason, in yarn, I quite like the effect. So I'll probably pair this with a simple grey yarn and make something out of it and see how it works. Trying to make it actually show up though. Yeah, there you go. This one in terms of yardage is 25 grams for 200 meters. And yeah, thought I'd give it a go. There were some quite nice other colours here as well, but I was going to go for like a pink with a gold, but I thought I'd been buying and using a lot of pink recently, so let me go for the silver version. It's lovely and fluffy, as you expect from brushed alpaca and baby alpaca. Next up, I have some fibre to show you. So I mentioned earlier that I was knitting with the Hedgehog Fibre Club, Hedgehog Fibres Fibre Club yarn that I'd spun. And I decided that I was having so much fun with the really bright pops of colour that they send through that I would subscribe once again in June. As such, I have some funky neon fibre to spin. They're 125 grams each, and you kind of get a random selection of stuff. However, the last couple of times, in contrast to previous times, this one is all 100% Falkland merino. And this one here, again, not as neon, more pastel-y. This one is 100% poleware. So normally they don't give you a specific breed of sheep. They will give you kind of a mixture of fibres in a packet and say it may contain all of these. So for example, the one that I'm knitting with now had some silk or something in it that was a fibre that that was a bit more shiny, and presumably some merino wool and kind of a mixture of things. Whereas these are very, very specific breeds of sheep. So yeah, I'm excited to spin these up again. I've subscribed for 3 months, so I'll get one more of these, which I will show you next month, and then I will decide whether to subscribe again the following month. I do think that what you get is quite expensive from Hedgehog Fibres, partly because I'm in the UK and Hedgehog Fibres is in Ireland, so it counts as a European country in the EU, and therefore I spend more because I'm not in the EU anymore, sadly. But it's also really nice to receive that type of thing. I've found that other fibre clubs typically are oversubscribed. So for example, Hilltop Fibres, Hilltop Yarns, I can't remember, is also oversubscribed, so there aren't any slots available, whereas Hedgehog Fibres is nice and easy to join up to because you just keep an eye out for the month where they're saying we're going to be putting our subscriptions up, and you jump on and you sign up. So that's quite nice, at least, that it's available to subscribe to. I also have really enjoyed the neon colours and spinning them and seeing how they turn out. So I'll have a think about it. I do have some other fibres that I need to get through. The other thing is that I do want to dye some of my own, so I might take a 3-month break and then resubscribe later. That's always an option. The other thing that's quite pricey is the delivery, so you have to kind of add that on in your mind as you purchase those. But yeah, it's fun yarn, it's been good quality so far, and I've enjoyed spinning it, so I thought I'd jump in again. So yeah, I'll show you how those turn out at some point. I'm not sure what I'll do with them. Again, they'll probably go in the pile of handspun yarn that I now own, and then I'll pick a project for them later on. The other thing I found with spinning is that it's actually surprisingly quick to spin up 100 grams of yarn and ply it, so I can get through it quite fast, and I am enjoying it, so why not? I'm just, in the meantime, probably not allowed to buy any hand-dyed yarn that I fancy, because I'm spinning my own instead. Last thing I wanted to show you is that I did buy another kit from Vikas Space for embroidery. I haven't actually started this one yet. I did take it away with me for a few days, but didn't actually do any because I was knitting on my little top. But I thought I'd show you. This is the pouch from my original kit that I showed a couple of episodes ago. but I've just moved my new kit in here. I opted for a reduced kit, so she offered both options. One of them was with the pouch, one of them is kind of with just the essentials. And this is the design. It's Pito Lake. So I'm all set up and ready. I've got my needle minder, which is actually in the design that I did previously because I just wanted the needle minder to match that. And yeah, it's going to be really cute in those greens and blues. In her kits you get the whole selection of threads. So I've got all of these here. You also get, or you can get some needles as well, and you get the hoop also, but I don't think I opted for the needles because I didn't need them. So yeah, I'll be working on this at some point. I enjoyed the last one so much that I thought, why not? Especially when I was going on holiday, and I thought that might be an easier, more portable project, but ended up with something else. And yeah, just gonna have this as another one on my wall next to Mount Rainier. Yeah, and again I'll link to Vikas' page in the description below. I think that is everything in terms of crafting right now. We have, like I said, been on holiday recently. We actually went to Chamonix for a few days to watch the Climbing World Cup there. And I won't spoil it for anyone, but there was a very successful Team GB climbing member, and we were super happy to be able to be there and support them and cheer for them, and yeah, support all the athletes actually, because to be honest, I'm a fan of a lot of the German team and the French team and everybody, but it's great to see professionals climb. It definitely teaches me something, and the atmosphere there with 20,000 people in the square during the final is incredible. We turned up 2.5 hours early before the final started to secure our spaces towards the front, and had an absolutely wonderful time. We also did a little bit of outdoor climbing on one of the crags nearby, and that was good fun to remind ourselves that we do really enjoy outdoor climbing. So we'll be going again very soon in the UK. But otherwise, D&D every week, climbing 4 times a week, and knitting and sewing wherever I can, and that's pretty much my life. Working as well, of course, I have to do that too to maintain the other hobbies. But yeah, it's been good to chat again and record an episode, and I hope to see you very soon with some more things to show. Have a lovely crafty few weeks.